Welcome to another episode of the Wandering Watercolor. Today we are working on the 7th page of the Complete Beginner's Guide to Watercolor Painting. Let's get started. Okay, so this is the 7th page. Now, as you can tell, it's the same box image replicated 8 times. So each of these images is the exact same, but we're going to practice rendering different ways. So that way you can kind of get a feeling for the depth of capabilities that watercolor has. And as always, you want to have somewhere to mix your color, usually just a porcelain plate. It can be any kind of plate. This is just a soap dish. There's also paint, any watercolor paint works. And I'll have links in the description if you need any of this. A brush, paper towel or a rag. Some on the side here I have two dishes of or 2 jars of water. And yeah, let's get started. So the very first thing we'll do, very simple, we're just going to get some brown here. And then we're just going to do a flat wash, just like we practiced multiple times over the past several pages. And the flat wash is, as we discussed before, just a way to block in the color. So this is a very basic way to render anything, but you get an idea of where the color is, and it's really good to use flat washes if you have a sketch and you're wanting to make like just a color scheme. Like if you're trying to develop a palette for how you want your scene to look, or if you're creating a character or anything like that, you just throw down some color just to see how things look together. And that's that for that one. It's just a very plain old flat wash box. That's it. Also, keep in mind as you're watching this video, keep in mind how this looks right now. Because it's wet, it looks darker. When it's completely dry, it'll look much lighter. In fact, I'll bet if you skip forward in the video, you'll see how it lightens up. And then you can come back to this and then just continue watching. So the next one will be this box. Now for this one, what we're going to do is... one of the advantages to watercolor is how loose it can be. It's how... free it is in a way. It's very chaotic. It can be very chaotic if you let it, so that you get a lot more expressiveness out of it. So with this one, for example, that's exactly what we're going to do. We're not aiming for anything perfect. We just want to make it more expressive. So for example, I'll just go like this. Just kind of lay in some color, get some water. I'm not rinsing my brush fully, but then just kind of... It's almost like the box exploded or something. So you see, like, when you paint like this, you can almost instantaneously make a background. Obviously, it's very chaotic, but then when it dries, you can always just go back to it, add detail, and then kind of like separate the image from the background. We'll let this dry a little bit, and then we'll get back to it so we can add to it, so you get a better idea of that. With this one, what we'll do is we'll grab some green. We'll just use it directly from the little cup there. We're just gonna grab some green, and then just, so basically this one is going to be as if the box is sitting on a lawn or just a patch of grass somewhere. I'm gonna rinse my brush. And we're going to let that dry. While that's drying, this should be good to go back to. So I just rinsed my brush completely. I'm gonna grab some more brown. And now you can see how the background sort of blends with the foreground and where the box is. What we can do is we can actually use some darker color, like let's say we just throw in some here like that, and we can kind of separate the box from the background. Now we do want there to be different colors in this box just to keep it interesting, so I'm completely rinsing my brush and then I'm drying it off, and what I'm doing here is I'm just going to kind of pick up some of that color, and then we can have an interesting, like a more interesting rendition of the box. There's like, it's a little highlight there, it's darker, but you see now how you see the background, but then you also see the box that's kind of like standing out in front of it. And now I know this looks much darker, but just like this box, it will become much lighter once it's dry. And then on back to this one, what we'll do is we'll grab some blue, and it could be a good amount of blue. And then we're just gonna fill in the top here, kind of like we did before for the sky. And while that's wet, we're gonna rinse off our brush completely and then just bring it on down, just kind of blend it on downward. So you can just create that effect of a background sky, maybe blend that in a little bit more where the edge is, just to help make it a smoother transition. Then I'm going to rinse off our brush. And then just like the first one, we're going to use just a regular flat wash. I'm going to dry off my brush a little bit because I don't want it to be too runny. I don't want it to mix up with the green that's drying off. And if it does a little bit, that's also fine. It'll make it look interesting. So far we just have a regular old flat wash, and we have a more expressive rendition here. And then, this is just to illustrate how much, this is the exact same image for intents and purposes, but you can see how different it looks when you have the background in there. And then the next one will be, we're just going to get just straight black, and the way we're going to do it is, actually, first we're going to dilute the black to just make it a nice light gray, like very light gray. You want a lot of water, just so you see how light this gray is right here. So what we're going to do is we're just going to lay that in just like we did with the grass here, and we're going to do the same both for the ground and for the box. So we're just going to make them one color here. Rinse off my brush. So now this is just black but diluted with water, and you see how gray it looks. Now if we do the exact same color, just the pure black, and we just grab it and we just start filling in this box, you'll see that it's so intense. It's like you're basically using ink. You can completely fill in the box. And it's like you just made a silhouette of the box. I like using the black just to show how intense the variations can be. Like with this one, for example, so the part that's colored in right here looks much darker than the background. So how can we make it look lighter? Well, it's all relative to the colors that are surrounding it. So if we grab just the pure black and we try to make it like a spotlight on the box, for example, like it's on a stage or something, and we just go ahead and fill that in, kind of like that. What we're doing basically is we're just painting the negative space so that it looks like there's a spotlight directly on to the box. Okay, but now if we want to add even more dimension to it, we can grab a little bit of black and darken up that gray that we were using previously. And what we'll do is we can add, like, let's say around here, we can add a little bit like that on the ground, so you can really kind of get a sense of the spotlight. We can darken up one of the sides of the box. Maybe add a little bit on the ground where it's sitting, just to show that there's a shadow. And then maybe also a little bit right here. I'm just gonna dry off the brush and then just kind of like that. So you see how much of the initial gray is left? There's not a lot. And this is just the white of the paper. We're using the white of the paper to create that highlight. And just keep in mind, this is all of these so far are the exact same image. You just see rendering it differently can alter the appearance in such an extreme way. So next, we're just gonna grab just some orange directly from the paint palette, and we're just gonna fill it in like this, directly over the cube. And then we're gonna leave that, we're just gonna let it dry like that. And while that's drying, we can just get some light blue and get our water here. Okay. And we're going to make this one look a little bit like an ice cube. The way we do that is we're just filling it in, but you want to leave some space to show that there's like a highlight. Kind of how, if you ever look at an ice cube, it's just kind of like a blend of highlights and then maybe a little bit of color for the water. So that's what we're doing here. Just very slowly going around, and there we go. And then I'm gonna dry off my brush, and using the lift off method with the brush, I'm just gonna pick up some of that, because we don't want it to be too dark, because then it won't look as much like ice. But also remember that this will dry lighter. Okay, there we go. I'm gonna rinse off my brush. Okay, so we have all of these different renditions here. This last one, well, actually, let's get back to this one. We'll finish this one in a little bit. So what I wanted to do with this one is basically show that if we grab just pure black again, like we're using as if we're using ink. And then we're just going to outline the lines. And go all through here. And then connect back here. And then with this one, we're going to pretend we're just going to follow the path of this one. We're just going to draw a parallel line to it, like that. And same with this line up here. We're just going to go like that. And then connect this corner to this corner. And basically we've just created a transparent cube. So this way, this is just an example of how you can make things look not just solid, but also transparent. And then with this last one, I'm going to get a little bit of red. I'm just going to do a dab of red right here. Rinse our brush, get some orange, and do a dab of orange. And we're going to blend it into the red a little bit. Rinse our brush. I'm going to do a dab of yellow and just fill it in right here. Maybe a little bit on the bottom. We rinse our brush and get some blue and just fill it in right here on the bottom. Rinse our brush and get some green. And I'm just kind of letting all these blend in together. And rinse our brush. So here you can see, just like we started, these are all the exact same image. But because of all the different ways that we rendered them, they just look so different. So this is the very first how we started. This is the exact same thing but with a background. This is just a very expressive rendering, more loose, high contrast, kind of like emphasizing the focal point. This is just a complete silhouette, just show transparency. This is so we can show highlights and just a different way of rendering. And this is just you just kind of mix up everything. And you can go back and add any details to anything that you want, but this is just a really good way to experiment and see all of the different things that you can do. Hopefully all of that made sense. If you have any questions, just leave me a comment or send me a message. And with that, I will see you next time.